Nicole Harvick.
And this is the Change Book Series. It is the fastest growing self-empowerment book series on the planet.
This spans over 30 countries, and we now bring them all together in a powerful podcast destined to change people from all corners of the globe.
So go ahead and grab your pen and paper, because our guest today is going to share a lot of amazing tips and inspiration that you're definitely going to want to write down.
My name is Rachel Best, and today we have a special guest, Shelly. Shelly is a Optavia coach, business leader, a two-time international best-selling author and speaker. She's the founder of Caring for Me Too, a faith-based health and wellness community. Shelly, we are so excited to have you today to interview you. Can you go ahead and just share with us, a little bit more about you and what made you decide to be a part of the Change series?
Well, thanks for having me. First of all, this is such a joy for me to be able to do this and share just a little bit of our story. It's funny. I go back a little bit to, I was an occupational therapist. I was a career woman, driven and everything. And then life changed, a storm hit, and our son developed a disability, a movement disorder. And that sort of started this thing for me. A slow fade, if you will, but it's funny because somewhere along the years of caregiving, I sort of lost my identity. But I look back and I remember this person who graduated college who was very driven and a vibrant go-getter kind of woman. But somewhere over time, I don't know if you've ever experienced that, it sort of went latent and it was sort of there, but not. And that's sort of how my journey went in just facing life. But so that's a little bit about me. I've been married to my best friend for over 40 years now, and we have 2 children. And so now I'm a coach, and I've living really my best life now. Kind of rediscovered Shelly along the way. So that's just a snapshot of me.
Nice.
Wow. And Shelly, I just caught you saying something. You said you discovered Shelly along the way. Do you, as a coach, and I'm curious about this, I know men can too, but do women seem to lose themselves in terms of who they are, what they stand for? I feel like sometimes I got lost in the mix and put everybody before me.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I think women, women are cast into a lot of different roles, and culture even casts us into a lot of different roles. And so we're constantly, juggling all the things. And I think sometimes in the busyness of life, and, whether you're a career woman or whether you're a stay-at-home mom, by choice, you've got a lot of roles and a lot of things to do. And if you have children, you're constantly scrambling, just trying to keep up with life. And I think in the process, what I have found, even for busy moms, but especially those who have kids with special needs, and that's a wide range of different people, but really all women in general, I think you can get lost. And sometimes you can lose a little bit of your identity in the process of all of that. And I think that's definitely a problem. It definitely was a problem for me, for sure. Because, when you step out of your career by choice, I mean, essentially, I went from my career to a live-it career. But for whatever, so I'm thankful in some ways that I wasn't completely freaked out by the demands of the rehab world, because I had worked in it a little bit, and I was married to I'm married to an engineer. But even in all that, women were constantly, and especially if you go back to high school, right? We're always trying to live a particular role sometimes. and look a certain way, act a certain way, fit this mold, whatever, whoever cast the mold, I don't even know. But we're constantly trying to live to a certain standard. And I think very often we lose ourselves in all of that. So I rambled, sorry. But that's it's for women.
Yeah, and I think that's so important, and it's interesting that I guess everyone does it, but I know, for women, you have this certain role in high school, and then maybe in your 20s, then you have the mom role, the wife role, and then when things don't work out quite like you anticipate, you have the role of just trying to figure out who you are, through divorce. And as I reflect back, I've morphed in so many ways that, I'm back to, like you said, discovering Shelley. I'm back to discovering Nicole.
Yeah, and I think sometimes the catalyst for a lot of that is the storms that we face in life. You mentioned divorce. My husband and I spent, before AJ got sick, we were actually lived apart for a year. We were separated for a year. I actually thought that we'd be, that I'd be going through a divorce. And that was honestly, in some ways, that was a start of part of my journey of finding me, because I could circle back to even childhood trauma and some things there. And so in the process of going through that separation and a little bit of finding me, I kind of rediscovered some things about myself. And, I'm thankful for that, because it kind of set me in a little bit more solid place, I guess, in my faith, but also my identity. So that when life did hit and, life was altered forever, I was a little bit more prepared. I don't know that you're ever prepared for the storms that face you, but I definitely was determined to overcome obstacles and stop being a victim. Funny, I ended up being one in the midst of this, which I'll share a little bit. But we're always role playing, and I talk in my chapter about the drama triangle. And I think no matter what life throws at you, you have choices, right? The nature of the storm, the intensity of the storm, whatever it is we face in life, they vary. The key differential, I think, is our response. And, our normal response sometimes is survival, and I think of my brain being hardwired for comfort, right? None of us wants to deal with the pain that life poses at us. So, I hit a lot of those different topics of how I responded in a not so healthy way, and how, I had this kind of wake up to, wow, do you want to keep living your life like this? And the answer to that would be no. And I had to realize that I'm not a victim of circumstance, that I have a choice. I don't have a choice in my circumstances, but I have a choice in how I'm going to respond to them going forward. Yeah, I was just a slow learner.
Yeah, and I think when I look back at situations, I learned a little slowly myself, but I'm really grateful that I finally looked at it with real eyes and thought, no, I had to be true to myself. And that, I think that was my epiphany and my changing point.
That's so good. That's so good.
Shelley, I love how I can tell your lingo. And so 15 commitments of leadership right there, right?
Amen. Yeah. Isn't that the funniest thing? Yeah, we just discovered that this morning. Wow.
Yeah. So if anybody is a leader, have you ever read that book, Nicole?
What is it?
15 Commitments to Conscious Leadership.
No.
Yeah, that is a must in anybody's role of, if you are for yourself, and also if you're leading a team or leading people or a leader or personal development, whatever. Like, it is so good. And Shelly, I'm so glad that you brought that up, because I speak a lot about that too, because the drama triangle, and being in the drama triangle, or being in the empowerment triangle, and being above the line and below the line, and how life happens for us. And it just, looking at things differently. So when you started looking at things different, how much did your life change? Like, can you walk us through some of those obstacles, or through, like, you mentioned your son? Can you walk us kind of through that?
Yeah, I can. I mean, for me, it was a slow process. Like I said, I was a slow learner. Um, I felt like I had my life together. I was spiritually strong. Anyway, this thing came in and it hit our life. And in the middle of it, you don't always see yourself getting lost in the process. I juggled all the things. I kind of say in the book that I chased after AJ's disease, his disability, like a storm chaser, with that kind of determination. Like, I went full on mama bear fix it mode. And, I thought, as a therapist, I should know what to do. I should be able to, quality of life. And honestly, I'm thankful for that person in me. I'm actually thankful for that, because I do think, it really did help us overcome a lot of his obstacles and things in life. But what I didn't realize is, in that process, I was losing touch with me. And so it became all about everyone else. And even when he was because what happened was, he was 8.5 years old. And it was almost like a switch went off in his body. And all of a sudden, we saw our really giggly, jabbery 8.5-year-old lose the ability to walk, talk, use his hands, all within the matter of like a week. It was this neurological storm that hit. His muscles were contracting and twisting, and his jaw was doing all this weird. It was very weird. Dizzy. I remember saying, AJ, stop what are you doing with your mouth? Like, or I couldn't hardly hear him. It was like he was whispering. And I mean, he's 8.5, and the kids do quirky things anyway at 8.5. But anyway, so it happened, and it was a couple days after Christmas. It was in 1995. And anyway, within a week, we were getting all these different tests done. I remember the neurologist coming in dancing that he didn't have a brain tumor, because they were sure he had. As a therapist, I'd thought of those things. But anyway, long story short, after a lot of testing and weeks in Children's Hospital in Denver — we lived in Colorado at the time — they diagnosed him with this rare neuromuscular movement disorder. That's sort of like an electrical problem in the brain, where your muscles just go haywire. Basically, your body automatically knows when to contract and relax muscles, but that system is messed up in his body. And so that was the start of our journey. And we brought him home 6 weeks later. Not walking. He was in a wheelchair, not talking. We actually didn't hear a word from him for 2 years. And we started working through what life was going to look like. And how could we, as parents, the one thing we were determined to do is give him as normal of a childhood as we could. We also have a daughter. She was 6 at the time. And so I remember even seeing in her face, she kind of oftentimes would show us what we were experiencing in our heart, was the confusion, like, oh my gosh, this is what our life is. And for a while there, it felt like we had the before, this was what our life was, and the now what of our life. And so that was the start of a long journey for me of just really going after it with how to basically fix my son. And
Wow.
I rehabbed this poor kid, I rehabbed him to death, I kind of joke about. But in the process, what happens a lot of times is we begin to cope. And the things that serve us to when you're in that, survival mode, where you're frantic and you're running on adrenaline, doing all those things. Well, over time, those things actually can create new burnout. And so the coping mechanisms that helped me early on, staying, different things, they actually became obstacles to me. And so, but I didn't know it at the time. And even the roles I was playing between kind of having my own little pity party. And then the other times I was like, watch out, world, I'm the hero. I'm going to make this thing happen, and you're juggling all of these things. And I even think of the drama triangle where I would villainize the disease, or I would be like, you just don't understand, or, and you're living your life stuck really between these different roles that you're doing and coping. And so as a course of coping, I'm using food, as in a lot of ways, not just to fill my stomach because I'm hungry. It was actually filling a void in my heart and the emptiness. And as he got older, when he's in school, it was one thing. I could still do a lot of things. I did ministry to women. I left my career, but I was doing ministry actively, doing a lot of things. Well, when he graduated and he was home, now I was really cast into a role different than I was used to. And eventually what happened is my relationships with people eroded because his needs were great. It would take an hour to feed him sometimes and each meal, and just caring for him, get him dressed, all the things that a caregiver does. What happened was I no longer could go to lunch with my girlfriends or do the different things. And eventually what happens, and not to sound like, woe is me, but honestly, you lose touch with people. And I began to live a very isolated, lonely life, literally my life wrapped around being a caregiver. And I felt like a shut in and lost touch with most of my relationships. On the outside, people saw, I remember somebody once saying that my husband and I made a hard life look easy. And I remember thinking to myself, well, my God, I wish I could make my life look hard so maybe somebody would pay attention to me. Like, and because you get forgotten because everybody else is busy too. And so anyway, that was sort of, and one day a picture came in. I saw a picture. It was Easter and we were all celebrating. And I have grandkids at this point. My daughter got married and we have grandkids. So like I said, I'm a slow learner. This was like 20 some years later, right? Because my son is 36 now. And so we've been at this a long time. And I looked at this picture. It just, how you have a picture and it just slaps you in the face? And a picture is like 1,000 stories, right? Like there's so many stories. Well, this story was so sad to me because I looked into the eyes. I didn't even recognize her. And it was me. And I looked like I carried the weight of the world on me. And honestly, I did. And I should have been happy and joyful like everybody else. And I wasn't. And she was overweight, and I just looked at her and I said, I don't want to live like this. Who is that? Because I remember, this other person, right? And somewhere in that shell of a person, I thought, where is she? And how do I find her again? That was really, and I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. And so I think sometimes we have to just get honest with where we're at and go, am I okay with this? And I literally was surviving my life, and I had a really good life, you guys. It's not like my life was terrible. I mean, it was hard, right? But I mean, I had a husband who loved me. I have, grandkids at this point. So, yeah, that was my real wake up call to I have to do something. And so this woman who thought she was just going to, like, the obvious was I was 50 pounds overweight. That was the obvious first step for me. And so this woman who thought she was just starting another diet, actually found a personal transformation that really has been the catalyst for me realizing how many other caregivers and special needs moms out there are feeling lost, um, and they're going through life numbing in different forms because we all do it, and are coping with their circumstances in a way that's not serving them well. And so that's really became kind of that first step for me. Sorry, talked too long.
That's such a powerful story, though, because I think each and every one of us has a moment where there's an epiphany that this is not what I want. This is not who I am. And for our audience, or for as a coach, how do you take that first step? How do you determine which step is the most important? How does that work?
Well, honestly, I think, the readiness is key. I coach people at a high level, right? But I coach people who are ready to, for me, I had that epiphany, right? I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. So there was a readiness in me, possibly 2, 3 years earlier. Maybe that wouldn't have been the time. Maybe I was too caught up in, my comfort zone, and I was finally at a place. So I think first of all, getting honest with where you're at, and honestly asking yourself, am I okay with this? Is this the life that I want to live? Am I willing to do, there's something that said is if the pain of staying the same has to become greater,
Mhm.
change has to become greater than whatever. I'm totally slaughtering that quote, but you get the idea of you aren't okay here anymore, and that there is life on the other side. You don't know you're going to get there, but you don't want to be stuck anymore. Because let's face it, the pit, of discouragement, the pit of despair, whatever is your thing that got you there, when you're in it, sometimes what we have a tendency to do is redecorate. I call it redecorating the ditch. We move the furniture around. We're doing anything we can to make that ditch okay. I'm okay here. And we redecorate it. And until you're ready to take the first step out of the ditch, that's who I can work with, right? I can work with you when you realize I'm not okay here in the ditch anymore. And I really want to take a step out, but you don't know how, and you need someone to partner with you. I think that's a key thing, is not, because there are a lot of people who are really kind of okay not being okay. And I'm not going to be able to convince you to get off the couch. Let's just put it that way. You have to want to get off the couch. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes a ton of sense, because I was that person for a while, and I guess, would you call it, I played the victim instead of the victor for a while, but I didn't realize it. I didn't know that was really a thing, but it was kind of a why me, not what did I learn from this. And when I finally realized that, and I could flip that and see things with my real eyes, and it's like, oh no, no. Who is this person? This is not me, and I am so done with that. But I love how you describe it as being in a ditch, because it's almost like you have to pull yourself up to just see light. And we have to be at that point, because no one can do it for us but ourselves.
Oh, definitely. I mean, it's definitely, I mean, it's why coaches, having somebody come alongside you, it's that linking arms, right? We're better together. If you think about that, you think about why animals run in packs, right? The sheep is that's off by itself is prey, but when they're together, they're less likely, I think. Or you think of the Roman army, right? They link their shields together, right, to go to battle. You see that. I think that's why coaching is so important, is because obviously we need that encouragement, and somebody to kind of get us, keep us going, because we're going to quit on ourselves every time, you know especially when the going gets a little bit tough, right? The stories we begin to tell ourselves, these habits, these roles we've played, we don't even see it. Like you said, Nicole, you said you don't realize it's an unintentional role you've taken on, but it's also habitual. Just like my coping mechanisms had gotten out of control, and it was habit that I was going into. And I didn't know that I was seeing life as happening to me instead of for me. I didn't see my obstacles as opportunities until I started moving up out of the ditch, and then talking through that and working with someone and realizing, okay, so I don't have to live this way. I can choose to live differently. But the tendency still is to slip back, and you need a hand up, I think. And that's really what I feel like. Okay, I'm still on the path myself. I still have, I live with a chronic degree. I mean, we faced a couple of years ago the near loss of my son. He nearly died post a surgery. A lot of stress, a lot of fear, a lot of things. It did send me a little bit spiraling down, but because I have the tools now, I could kind of disrupt that. And go, no, we're not going back. We're not going back to wallowing and being in this pit. Because life still happens, even when you're equipped, even when you're growing, even when you feel like you're flourishing and you have purpose and stuff. Life is still happening, but I think we recognize now with new eyes, and we have the tools, and we can go, wait a minute, this is happening for me. How can I grow amid this? Because I know what it's like to not live, and I choose life, right? Yeah. So.
Whew, Rachel, she's a powerhouse.
Yeah, so good. I know, I'm just like listening and taking in all the things that you're very inspiring, very knowledgeable. You dropped a lot of nuggets, and I'm grateful that we got the opportunity to have this time with you today, Shelly. Something we typically end at the 30-minute mark, and so we have a few minutes left. So I would like to ask you, like, what is next? My goodness, we're almost at the end of 2023. What is next for 2024? What are you excited about? What do you have planned?
Well, so much. I absolutely plan to grow. Caring for Me Too has been birthing in my heart for years. And to be honest with you, with balancing growing our other business, I haven't actually put as much energy into that, although God has been gracious to bring people into our life. We're working with a man now who's, has a son with a physical, actually a behavior disability. Anyway, mental health issues and stuff. I mean, the disability is everybody, right? I almost am thankful for my sons being a visible one, because I think the ones that you don't see are the ones that people are much more challenging on. But anyway, I see this ministry growing because health, it depends on how you define health. I define health as, physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, and financially. In all of these areas, that actually is a healthy person. And so my passion is to partner with other people, specifically caregivers, in health, getting healthy. We live in a world right now that is very unhealthy. It's a lot of emotional mismanagement, and I've been there. And I'm living a different life now. You wouldn't even recognize me a number of years back to who I am today. So I look forward to whatever it is that I have growing two businesses now. So
that's awesome. And I want to also ask, when you decided to be part, or which series are you in? Which one are you in?
The book 20.
Okay, so you're
not out yet. Yeah,
okay,
it's not out yet.
Nicole and I are in 19. That's how we met. So what is your goal? Like when you got approached with being a part of the Change Book series, what was the thought process, the goal, like the end goal of being a part of this amazing series?
It's so funny because first of all, I don't even know how they found me. Because I'm really not that good yet on social media. I'm trying to grow that thing. And like I said, it's an old dog learning new tricks. And so, at first I thought I just wanted it to be a funnel to our health coaching business. And then what I began to start seeing it far bigger as, oh, wait, no, it can be a both. Like it may be, there may be people, but I have a lot to offer just in general in coaching people, whether or not they use our program for their physical management. I think that just in life, in how to just deal with the role that they're now cast into and how to stay out of certain patterns of behavior. So we actually see it as both. And we've got some ideas looking forward on how to get into the homes of the caregivers beyond just social media. We have some other things, but I'm not going to share what those are. But we have some vision that I feel like has been downloaded in the last couple of months on how to do that. So yeah, my goal is really to have a global movement of caregivers and take away some of the stigma and help them prioritize self-care. Because there's another caregiver who says a healthy caregiver is a better caregiver. And I would agree with that. If you ever were in caregiver pages, you would see the tone, and it's sad. And I want to change that because I think we have a lot of life to live, and we shouldn't be just, I don't know, wallowing and wasting our life away, right? So hope that helps answer that question.
No, I love that. I love that, Shelly, because you're bringing something to the world. You said a movement. You're bringing something to the world that obviously you've seen that there's a need for it. And so if you see that there's a need for it, if you experience that, then we're passionate and we do the things that that we've walked through, and then we found the answer, and we're on the other side of it. And so I'm excited to just follow your journey, and I'm grateful that we've been able to connect through this series, and this is what I love.
I know.
You meet some people you would have never even met if it wasn't for this series. So I'm so grateful for both the gyms for just putting this all together.
Oh yeah, me too. Me too. And I can't wait to actually see you guys in 3D, like in person sometimes and stuff, because I've been following your stories, and it's pretty powerful what God's doing. And yeah, who knew a little a chapter in a book could, be such a catalyst for change, right?
Yes. Very powerful stuff.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
Well, great.
Well, we thank you so much. And I'm sure this is not the end. This is only the beginning. And I'm excited to meet you as well. And Nicole, you have any last closing words for us?
When you talk about this book, and I've been so impressed by the people that I've met It's really been an amazing way to connect with like-kind people, because I think what it does is everybody that's part of this book has a big heart. They want to do good. And I really am, like you said, I'm grateful for Jim and Jim for putting this together and giving us the opportunity, because we know there's power in numbers. And when we're all working together like this and meeting each other, and we all kind of have that same vision of helping, making life easier, doing what we need to do to be part of the change. And the change is for the greater good. I really believe that. So Shelley, it was great to meet you. Rachel, you know we adore you. So this has been a great conversation.
Yes, I want to add something to that real quick, because I say this so often. Like, I remember when I was in, like, maybe I feel like first, second grade. It was my lower, elementary years, and I remember them asking, like, "What do you want to be in the world?" And everybody always, has these, I want peace and all these things, and I want to change the world. And like, I literally feel like that little girl inside of me is like, that's what I'm doing. Like, and I think that when there's so many of us together that are like, we can change the world and we can make the world a better place. And, there's these few people that are coming together and we're uniting together. And like, I really think we can change the world. So it's just when you said that, I was like, oh my gosh, it just sparked in my mind of like when I was a little girl, of like, oh, we can change the world, And so, I think it's amazing. And I think sometimes we lose, that's the identity part too, right? Like sometimes we lose that little person inside of us, that little girl, that little boy inside of us that has all those dreams and those goals and those desires. And sometimes then life smacks us in the face, or things happen, or people don't support our goals and our dreams. And so then we just kind of put them on the back burner. And then a lot of people don't, move forward in what they're really designed to be, in their true potential, and walking in the potential that they're created with their gifts, their talents, and their life experiences. And so I think the Change series has definitely given an amazing platform for all of us to be in one spot and to really just make that impact. So
yay. I'm so excited. I'm so pumped up and ready to go.
Awesome. All right. Well, we will go ahead and come off here. I look forward to seeing y'all in the future. And until next week, bye-bye.
All right. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I'm Nicole Harvick,